Dr. Jazz.
Hey guys,
Dr.
Samo here.
Jazz.
Thanks for checking out the channel and its contents. And if you feel like it, please do subscribe. Thanks so much. Enjoy the video. Bye. Thanks for finding the time. First of all, appreciate it.
Oh yeah, of course. Are you in Slovenia?
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah,
or yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
You ever
Right.
played here? Not yet, right? I don't
I
recall.
don't think so. Yeah,
Yeah,
don't think so.
don't recall that. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
when Tangent came out, I became aware of you. I was like, oh man, I love that. And I'm a big fan of Chris as well on guitar, and so
great.
and I really love those records. I mean, everything you've done. So and
Oh, thank you so much.
yeah, so beautiful to catch here at least and chat a bit. And
Yeah,
uh, I wanted to start this talk with color fields, and because I mean, it's the latest one. I'm waiting for a new My Iris quartet
yeah,
one.
it's coming quite soon. Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about that. But what's the story behind color fields? It's slightly different in a way. It's I don't know. It reminded me of Henry Threadgill. I don't know why, but just that association I got. But like, it's not your typical duo. You're exploring some different stuff and
Yeah.
lots of pitches going on and some tiny bits and details. What's the story behind that record? And
So Louise is clearly like a phenomenal cellist, and we studied together. So we've known each other. We're friends. We've known each other a long time. And we've actually kind of played some of that material, not all of it, but some of that material like on and off over a number of years. So we've done radio broadcasts and things before and little gigs and stuff. Just when we each have time, because
yeah,
the kinds of things that we do are so different. She's in a really incredible contemporary ensemble now called Riot Ensemble, and they do all sorts of fantastic things. But yeah, so we'd kind of always had it on our radar to do like a duo thing. And I'm trying to remember. I think it was slightly, the reason we ended up recording was slightly to do with COVID. So we were meant to do
mm,
a festival. So I don't know if you've heard of like the Punked Festival
yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah. Sure, of
in
course.
Norway.
Yeah.
They were going to do like a little collaborative version of it in Birmingham, via some musicians based there, and Louise and I had been asked to kind of do a set, and then our sounds were going to be like remixed, in the sort of punked kind of way. And because of COVID, it never happened. But the sort of musicians who'd kind of Chris Mapp kind of spearheaded the idea to bring the concept over the punk. He reached out to the guys, and he was like, "Well, you may as well." Use the funding for something. So we kind of, we put a date in the diary to record. So I can't, was it, I think it was a few years ago now. It was either 21 or 22. I can't remember. I literally can't remember.
Yeah.
It was sort of a weird time. So we kind of got that down, and we did do like a little gig around then. And I hope at some point we'll kind of do some more. We're going to do kind of a little set, so when I do like an album launch for my band's album, which we can talk about if you like.
Yeah,
Uh, we're going to do like a little short set before we do that. So we are going to
fantastic.
play the music live. But yeah, so that's kind of like a hodgepodge explanation of, yeah. So it's kind of like a reflection on everything we've done, over the years, really. And yeah, there's probably not a lot more to say about it other than
No,
it's just a little conversation between us,
yeah, yeah. I mean, how is the music written? Because when I listen to it, it's like, it's like hard to distinguish almost what's improvised and what's composed.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
really gelling together. Like, how did you do that? I mean,
So each one, I mean, how you've explained it is basically what it is, but each one does it in a slightly different way. So the first track, it's called Cells
yeah,
because, like, I just wrote some little I guess pitches, so like in a bar, for want of an arbitrary word, just like a little group of pitches, and they just shift over time. So it's kind of a bit minimalistic, really. But
Yeah.
and then we kind of in the studio kind of explored a few ways to do it, and the way that we ultimately went with was quite a freely interpreted version of it. So we kind of improvised with them as opposed to sticking strictly to what was there. And it kind of overlaps. So we move sort of through the cells kind of together, but not exactly at the same time. So it meant that we could like really lean into, if we kind of happened upon something really interesting in the harmonies, we could like lean into that. And so it was kind of fun. So that was the first track. The second one, it's like a big soaring cello melody that I wrote years before, and it's just to sort of exploit the fact that there's so many cool things you can do with cello, and Louise is pretty good at having explored lots of different things. So I think like it was just a simple thing of her being able to bow, with one hand and then still do pits and stuff. So, and then I was kind of doing finger clicks, but it's just basically a big melody that you happen upon, and then I improvise over it. So that's a fairly straightforward concept. Song for Sariaho. I don't know if you've come across Kaya Sariaho's work, but she was like incredible Finnish composer, and absolutely mind-blowing, amazing music. And I came across, because Louise years earlier had been doing this duo piece of hers that was for cello and bass clarinet, and so I think I was just really inspired by that. So I kind of just wrote a little. So I was kind of in the early days of exploring multiphonics on my saxophone. So I was kind of like, so the piece kind of exploits that. And then again, we just sort of loosely improvise with the material that I wrote. One of the tracks is completely improvised, like completely free. I think I've done it in the right order. I think that's the fourth track. And then the last one is like something that Louise came up with. So she really wanted to do a tune that just sort of worked with a looper, so she kind of like worked up like a little series of like sounds and stuff, and then she just sort of has this really beautiful pits kind of little chord sequence towards the end that she brings in, and again I improvise over it. So it's kind of quite straightforward, in a way, but just each one is a different thing.
Yeah, it has a different vibe. I listen to Journey to Where as well, and that's way more jazzy in a sense. I hate that word, but it's like really compositions like what I've been used from Tangent or my Iris Quartet by you. It's like sounds very complex though. Lots of grooves and written out bass lines on the piano, and And how much do you compose, and how do you compose actually? Like, because you come up usually with these beautiful melodies, and then there's always some tricky parts.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, that one for Wayne Shorter, I love that. That's like nice melody, then it comes like and like a unisono line. Or what's your process when writing usually?
I try and do different things each time, I guess, in a way, like so that I'm not kind of stuck in a rut of like one way of writing, so that I'm always trying to push my language.
How do you do that? That you
I guess so obviously, there's plenty of tunes I've written where, something comes into your head and then etc. etc. But then I've got quite a lot of tunes now that have started with multiphonics on my horn, on my saxophone. So I'll take pictures from I'll almost find like a sort of chord sequence, with the multiphonics, and then use that as a starting point. So I've done that a whole bunch of times. And then I'll write, either a melody across it or whatever. I've explored loads of different ways of thinking about groove and drums and rhythm section stuff. So whether it's like, the thing with like my Iris is because it was kind of an accident that we didn't have a bass player. Like the project kind of came out of a random radio thing that I did, and I just kind of enjoyed the challenge of making it work without bass, because the initial stuff we didn't have drums either, and I realized that it made me much more aware, or like paid much more attention as a composer to like how to construct groove, because it had to be thought through. It's not like the drums is going to suddenly do a
Yeah.
convenient fill at the end of a 4-bar phrase or something. So it kind of started, that kind of writing kind of started in that, and I think that just made me better. Like I remember doing loads of listening, or like deeper listening and reading about drummers and drumming and all sorts of stuff. So I've kind of, some of the grooves I use, sometimes it's like literally I'll start with that, so I'll transcribe something interesting that I've come across. It might be jazz, or it might just be some other kind of groove music, and write ideas from there. Or maybe I'll take a groove and like maybe it works out kind of nicely with some other idea that I've been working on. Sometimes I write to exploit the bottom of the guitar or something, because like I think people are surprised by how low the guitar goes. I know that sounds like a ridiculous thing to say, but it's like, and it's obviously got it goes lower than the tenor, but they obviously have very complementary ranges. So there's all sorts of interesting things to kind of get into there. And then some, so, I mean, I guess the way that I think about it in my head is like over time anyway, like I think I've gone from like having a lot of like writing very instinctively. I mean, I still write instinctively, but like rather than it being pure instinct, like the more you write, you become aware of different aspects of, I think I hope my writing has more clarity now, like more focus and so when I write a tune, it's really doing a very specific thing in the writing that I'm trying to achieve, and like seeing that idea through, and not getting distracted, not having, too many things in the mix, even if it sounds, like I never set out to write something complicated, actually. Like I just set out I just set out to see an idea through,
Okay.
So that's quite, I guess, I don't know if that's a loose explanation or not, but I just keep trying to push myself, just like with improvised language, just trying not to keep doing the same thing, trying to grow, and just keep searching for that thing, whatever it is.
No, I'm just asking because sometimes as a composer as well, like, how to keep fresh as a composer, right? That's, for me, that's many times a problem, that like I've written like rubato things or whatever, 7 unisono lines, well, and then I'm starting to write something, and I'm like, how to make something really different or fresh, and then I go to listen to, to some artists that I like, or listen to Radiohead even, or whatever, some other music, just to get in, like, oh shit, okay, it's an idea. Because in jazz world, I think the language, at least I have, it's like, it's another 7/4 groove, okay. It's okay, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you have these problems sometimes or not, or like?
I think I just listen to music so broadly. I mean, like when I'm writing for, because I write for things that aren't jazz as well. Not all the time, but like fairly frequently. And so I think I've got quite used to this idea of translating things, and like I guess when you've got improvisers in the room, and again, it depends what kind of improvisers they are, right? Because there's quite a lot of different improvising languages out there. I think it's sort of like it's sort of balancing, like letting there be a space for that, isn't it? And also kind of doing your job as a writer in the room, like setting a tone, or, I mean, I sometimes find like I kind of wonder if, like, when my writing ends up getting quite dense, like through the process, that then for the improvising space, I want something really open and not on, like, so, like I'll take something from the writing, obviously, but it's almost like a reactive space to it.
Yeah, I do that
Kind
as
of
well.
thing.
Yeah.
And I sort of learned a lot about that through just kind of listening to a lot of weather report, to be honest, or like the early weather report.
Yeah.
and you know, like anyone that kind of knows me knows how I'm so obsessed with like Wayne Shorter's
Yeah.
music. 'Cause he's just like a constant, inspiration. And I think, I don't think I mean, I was aware of it, but like how lucky I was, like when I was like 17, 18, for that last quartet of his to have
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
started around that time, so that I really got to see him exploring all that material. Like when at that point in his life, because that in itself is kind of an unusual thing to hear someone doing a new thing, like a new
Yeah.
project, and like really still finding things conceptually, but having had all that experience that he had at that point. And then for me to be able to go and like hear so many concerts of them doing that, and just, obviously I hadn't got a clue what I was listening to when I first started with it, but I was just so drawn to it. So yeah, just kind of really learning um from hearing like amazing masters do it, really when their writing gets really like
Yes.
intense and complex, then them sort of then finding ways to balance that out, and then when I've got something where it's not as dense, or it's kind of about something else, then the improvising can exist in a different way.
Yeah.
um so I think it's that really, and again with Louise, for color fields, she's I don't know how she would describe herself, because everyone has their own particular ways, but she's fantastic at improvising. But she didn't, she hasn't studied like jazz improv as such, but she did loads of folk when she was younger, and so I've always found her incredible, and like her time is incredible. Like, so I've always found it really easy to collaborate with her, because we just find our own way of improvising
Yeah.
in a way that makes sense, kind of, for us. So yeah, so I think I totally know what you mean, but I think my answer to the, you know, I guess the jazz problem is just looking outside it, really.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
thinking about the drums really is kind of, really become my answer to all problems,
No, no. Hey, hey.
even if they're not there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, it's like Wayne always solved that. Like you said, he did the Blue Note stuff. Then there was the, weather report period. Then he did the Brazil stuff. Then, whatever he explored, he seemed to have his compositional language going
Yeah.
on and searching for new things. And I find that amazing. And it was his sound all the time, also, like
Hmm.
compositionally. And it's like, ah, dude,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, but
Yeah.
how did you like? Who were you mentioned Weather Report and Wayne, and the UK, the tradition of jazz saxophone is so huge. Like, from Stan Salzman to Evan Parker, the younger guys like Ian Bellamy, Mark Lockhart. I mean, I can just name all these amazing players and composers. Uh, who was the main reason actually you started to dive into jazz? Actually, like, was there like an
Uh,
aha moment? You heard Weather Report, or like how did that happen for you?
that's a good question. I mean, so I think, because I grew up in Shropshire, it's quite a rural, kind of, relatively speaking, rural part of the UK. Um, and so it was fairly random how I got into it. It was basically, there was quite a lot of like very enthusiastic kind of musicians locally, like some of whom taught me in different ways. And so it was really kind of led by whatever they were doing or whatever they were interested in. Um, and so, I think like my dad brought home like a compilation album or something. It was just like one of those. It might have even been like a news, like the Sunday. I mean, this doesn't happen anymore, but like the Sunday Times did
Yeah, yeah,
like, like a 4 CD something or other of like the history of jazz or whatever. So it was just whatever. But I'd had like loads of, like, what I didn't realize it was jazz, but loads of that kind of thing in my upbringing anyway, because my granddad had taught himself to play piano and played loads of standards.
okay.
So I was quite used to singing standards when I was a kid. I didn't think of it as jazz. I just was singing with my granddad, and my mum kind of had a Ella Fitzgerald kind of recording that I was kind of obsessed with. So I actually had a lot of it kind of up here without even realizing, you know. So then my dad kind of got into it because he was doing like some local big band stuff, and yeah, like Weather Report, Miles Davis, like you know, and then things like Grover Washington Jr. Like you
Oh
know
yeah,
was
sure.
kind of so like every you know the whole spectrum of was on this. So I kind of gradually it became my obsession as opposed to my dad's basically over time. And because I didn't, you know, I was doing loads of music, but I wasn't kind of thinking I was going to be like a musician or anything. Like, so it was quite relaxed. You know, I sang and played piano, played saxophone. That kind of I kind of took that more seriously, kind of a little later. But yeah, I'd always been into like writing little things at the piano anyway. So it was all quite sort of. It wasn't like one particular thing. I think I remember like hearing a tenor saxophone at a gig and being like, "Oh, I'd really like to," you know. I think they were playing Ellington's "In a Sentimental Mood." It was, you know, it was like a classic tenor feature or something. So I think that was the thing that kind of got me drawn to the tenor. But yeah, I think it was just sort of there was kind of a lot of digging around with the reel, but you know that got handed around and stuff. And I suddenly realised like all my favourite tunes were like the sort of quirky Wayne Shorter tunes, you know, like. So it was a slow thing, but I was really into also I was into Loose Tubes, you know, like
Yeah,
the
sure,
big band from here that
sure.
Django Bates led, and obviously Ian Bellamy was in. And then Ian, you know, I know him very well now, but like at that point, I'd just started to latch onto some of his own records as well,
Yeah.
and was really drawn to that. And I'm just trying to think what else. I was like really into Keith Jarrett around then, and like loved that Charles Lloyd live record with him and Cecil McBee, I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
so all sorts of things like that. Yeah.
When you came to London, how was that like for you? Like, because I think your generation of players is incredible. I mean, it's each one of you is such a great improviser, great composer, you know, on every instrument. There's like from drummers, you know, James, like basically you take your band and you have on every instrument like in amazing players, right? Like Chris and Antlaw on guitar as well. It's kind of,
Oh yeah, the thing.
you know,
Yeah, yeah,
all
yeah.
these guys around your generation. How was that the vibe like when you came to London and starting to play? Was it hard to get gigs initially, or did you immediately start to lead bands? And
I'm just trying. I mean, like, so first of all, when I came to London, like, I was just so excited to be around so many people my own age who were like really into music in the way that I was, you know, because I hadn't really had that. Um, so that was, you know, and I had, you know, I had lessons and stuff and did lots of music and did gigs with older musicians and stuff, but I didn't go to like a specialist music school or anything. So that it was a real, like, it felt really special to have that to start with. And then, I think, I mean, I was just where I studied, like, it was very pro. There were lots of really interesting people there doing lots of really interesting things. There was a lot of people writing their own music and, you know, exploring. So it was very like, and it was quite an open course when I did it. So there was lots of space to kind of pursue whatever you wanted to
your
pursue.
own
So
way, yeah.
I think maybe I started. I sort of have a vague recollection of doing like a little demo CD because that's what it would have been. Like maybe in my second year, there was like a studio there was a really cool engineer who worked there, and she kind of made it very easy for everyone to do things if they wanted to. And then yeah, I think I sort of then gradually started doing kind of gigs here and there. I can't remember exactly when, at what pace it all happened, but it
Yeah.
was, you know, just a gradual, you know, process. I think this, I don't know if it's easier or harder. I think it's definitely different to how it used to be, but I don't know. I goodness, I mean, jazz venues change all the time anyway, don't they? So it's kind of like all all the random little things that existed, when I was studying aren't there anymore, but there'll be
Yeah.
other things instead, So,
Yeah.
yeah. There was also, I remember there was this, I don't think they're really doing stuff anymore, but there was a large collection of musicians called the Loop Collective, who were like Alcyon and Mick, do you know the pianist, and Ivo Neem,
I know. Yeah,
pianist,
sure. Yeah.
and Robin Finker, like tenor
Oh, yeah,
player,
sure. Yeah, of course.
like
Yeah.
not in the UK anymore, but
Yeah.
but yeah, so there was like a really big group of people doing really cool stuff who were just like maybe sort of 4 or 5 years older than me, and they kind of ran nights, so that was really, so it felt like the energy was very like, making things happen and interesting stuff as possible and all that kind of thing. That's what I remember anyway. Yeah, and then just sort of, in that first year or so out of college, just working really hard to kind of try and find some opportunities, to do my own music and stuff, and just kind of went from there, really.
Yeah. No, I'm asking because, like, I've been to New York so much, and New York had that vibe. Still now it has a little, but you could go from one concert to the other concert, and because it's like everything is in such a dense area. It's still a big area, but it's
Yeah.
and people meet in apartments to jam and play. And for London, I don't know. I never got that idea. I mean, I've been a couple of times to London that you could go from a place to place. I mean, I asked this like also Chris Montague, and was there like a scene, or is there like a feeling of a scene, or when you started, that you could go from one place and see someone play there, and then to the other place, and
It definitely doesn't have the same like number of activities as New York, for sure. I mean, like New York is singular in that, isn't it?
yeah,
But it's still like, yeah. So I mean, you couldn't do that in the same way, for sure. But people kind of organize their own things. It's a different country. It's a different energy here.
yeah,
So you know, but yeah, I mean, I just remember everyone being like really proactive about getting, I'd go and have plays with people, and all the kind of things that you would kind of expect. I think it's just the number of activities, just it just doesn't compare in the same way. And also there's like, there are a lot, it's a big scene, London. I mean, it's definitely bigger
yeah.
than it was as well, but it's still not the same as like it's like a sort of extraordinary, isn't it? Like the amount of musicians that are in
Insane,
that
yeah.
kind of area. So I mean, it's never going to compare to that. But I mean, it kind of has its benefits, I guess. Like the space kind of gives you different. I mean, I remember having a conversation. There's like a really cool bass player called Marty Kenny, like he's in New York, that I met. It's like through a string of people, but I remember him being like really struck by the commitment that like we kind of have with our bands sometimes in the UK, because even though it's kind of, it's always a struggle to kind of put stuff together, because everything
Yeah.
is just so unbelievably challenging at the moment. But economically, I mean, for the country and therefore us, like even more than it ever was. But I guess it's maybe still not on the same extreme as New York. I mean, New York can be. I was speaking to this saxophone player that has just moved out there, and he was kind of saying, like on a good day, it's like incredible, but like on the bad days, it's like
Yeah.
utterly brutal.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I don't know. I think my thing has always been, you just sort of have to try and make music that kind of responds honestly to where you are and what that environment, the advantages of where you are, and being true to that. Like,
Yeah.
that's the way I think about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did the band leading come easy to you in the beginning? And when you look back now and at Tangent, and How did that happen, actually?
That's a good question.
That record.
I did
And
like all that.
I mean, because it's such a great record. It's unusual, have the cello again, and the
Yeah.
tunes. I love the tunes again. Like, what's how
Thank
did it
you.
all happen?
Um, so I, my writing had been ramping up. I mean, I did like string quartet, a bit of, well, I say string quartet writing, attempting to write for a string quartet, like when I was at music college. So I was kind of already kind of exploring all of that stuff anyway. And then again, it's this thing of like, I mean, I think everyone's the same, really. You never really know what you're going to do, and I think the sort of looseness and openness, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing about being in London, is that there's less of that kind of this is what a jazz saxophone player looks like,
Yeah.
and this or sounds like, more to the point, like, this is how it has to be kind of thing. There's less. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but there's less of that, I think, when I compare to, just swapping notes with other people that I know in the States. And so you have to make a weird little way for yourself to kind of to do anything, to make a statement. So when I finished, I mean, I had, I feel like at one point I'd got to the point where I was maybe doing a gig with my own band like a month, and I felt like there was a bit of momentum. I'd just taken myself to New York to sort of check out some things. I stayed there for a week and found that really inspiring. And I came back, and when I came back, I was just like, oh, I just need to do something. I just need to like make a recording or just do something, and I didn't think of it as like making a jazz record. I was just going to do kind of like a demo, I guess, for what I can do. So I'd kind of had it in my head because I was only like maybe 2 years out of music college at this point, and where I studied, like, I found it like a really supportive institution, actually, and I'd always got on really well with. There's like a brilliant team who kind of did all the room bookings and stuff, and because like I was always up for doing my own thing, like I was always applying to do concerts and little recordings and stuff, and I think and I earned money kind of being a steward on gigs and stuff. So I kind of knew all those people. And so I got back in touch with them and said like, oh, I really want to do a demo. Like, how much would it cost for me to like hire like one of the spaces? And they were like, well, you know what, if you come in the Easter holidays when no one's doing stuff, you
Okay.
can have it for free. It was so supportive. And so that was very lucky. So I got the space for nothing. And the engineer that I kind of mentioned, who was really cool there, she's not there anymore, Kirsten Cowie, and she gave me mates rates, barely charged me anything. And then, yeah, and just because I'd had this sort of bonkers idea, and I think by this point, because people knew that I don't know, like musicians are really supportive of each other,
Yeah.
like they want to, if you're the kind of person that likes making things happen, certainly like in that kind of little golden period when you're just out of music college, like people want to support you because they know that you're going to be in the scene and in the long run contribute to like how things and vice versa, all the people who are like fantastic at being able to jump into any situation and be amazing and put their gold dust on other people's music. Like, do you know what I mean? It's kind of
Yeah, yeah,
like,
absolutely.
so yeah, so I just kind of basically called in a lot of favors. And then I mean, it took a lot of work, obviously, but I just sort of somehow managed to organize it all as well as writing it all, which I come in and look back on it, I don't think I could do that again. It was just so much work.
Yeah,
But
it's
but that's what you do when you're just out of music college, isn't it? You do crazy stuff. That's the time for crazy things. So yeah, so I kind of did that, and then just as time went on, um, I think I ended up, because I sort of knew Gwilym Simcock, the pianist
yeah.
who kind of guests on it. I didn't. He wasn't at. We went to the same music college, but he'd left when I started. But I just kind of knew him through other people, and because like he knew I was into writing, and I don't know, like he's just quite a supportive kind of person. So
Yeah.
at some point I think I've just bumped into him and ended up telling him about what I was doing, and then he was just like, oh well, you know, I think I might know some people who are interested in that, because the manager and label that he was working with, or still works with, in
Oh
fact,
yeah, Basho, yeah.
Basho, yeah.
Yeah.
They, you know, Christine Allen, I mean, she was so supportive
Such a cool label.
to me
I
in
really
my
love that
early
label. Yeah.
career, you know, like
So cool.
amazing. So yeah, anyway, cutting a long story short, she was up for supporting it. And then, you know, I was just like, well, Gwilym, you've got to come play on some of the music, you know. So yeah, so that's it, you know, it wasn't really a grand plan as such. I mean, it kind of was, in a weird kind of, you know, me trying to do crazy things, but it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to make my first debut record and put an orchestra, you know, it didn't happen like that, you know, like it was just a gradual thing, you know,
Yeah.
snowballed.
No, but yeah, you have to start somewhere. I mean, come on. It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's a great record. And then you did like a record, I think every 2 years, so when it all for Basho, and then My Iris happened, and we mentioned the quartet before, and I think that's like I looked at your touring schedule, and again, you're gonna play with those guys this year. So,
Yeah.
like you said, I guess a new record is coming out. Like, how did you decide for that quartet? And like you said, there was no bass, and I love the tunes. I love the tune like that. I can't find another brush or something. Like
Oh, yeah.
my other brush. That's such a cool groove. But how did that quartet happen? And
Yeah. So it's kind of started without drums. So it was me, Chris, and Ross, and we did this like radio session.
yeah,
So I was really lucky. I was on like this really cool scheme um, called the BBC Radio 3 New Generation Artists.
mm,
And so it's mostly like a classical thing, but they sort of have a jazz artist here and there. So it's this amazing opportunity in the sense, not only that, you know, just all the experience of kind of doing live and studio broadcasts. It's obviously like really good for you, but yeah, just kind of like working with orchestras, and then also just having the chance to do some slightly off the wall things that, you know, like here the challenge, like in the UK, I mean, the challenge is if you band lead and you write, you know, you kind of have to pursue that thing. It's very difficult to do a second project, or you know, like if you're
okay,
trying to fix gig, and even more so now than that was true at the, you know, 10 or 15 years ago, because there just aren't enough venues in the UK, you know, and arts
yeah,
funding. I mean, I know it's the same in the States. It's just, but yeah, so it's really challenging. Like if you do your own thing, like you kind of really have to zone in on like a thing and pursue it. So what was amazing about this radio scheme, I kind of knew Ross anyway, through, you know, bits and bobs of gigs, and I really wanted to sort of write some things, or you know, make some charts like for him, and I thought it'd be really cool to do it without drums, you know, just to explore some sounds and textures and stuff. So it kind of started like that, and that's when I got like really excited about like how it was making both, like making us work differently, and just yeah, just like all the colors and things.
yeah.
And then yeah, just when it, I guess when it kind of became my main project, I did want the drums. So we had drums back in, and then it was really interesting because like the music was so, because it worked like without them as such, you know, like so then it became quite interesting when they were back there again, because you know, we found some interesting spaces, you know, like it was, you know,
Arranges, yeah.
like James could just drop out if he wanted to, you know, and it would have been fine, you know. So it kind of, hopefully, you know, so I find that really interesting, and I guess I just stuck with it, you know. I sort of, I really like seeing things through, and I really enjoy the conversation over time that you get when you write for people.
A band, actually, yeah.
Yeah, like, and it's really challenging. I mean, it's so challenging keeping, you know, anyone who plays this music and writes their own stuff knows that. And there's so many temptations to just kind of do a different thing each time, because,
Yep.
you know, people love that, don't they? You know, like I see it, you know, in the way the press cover it, the way that promoters respond to stuff, it's just like, oh, it's a new thing, but musically, like, I really I like seeing things through. So if if I'm in a situation where I'm getting new ideas for the people that I'm working with still, then I want to keep writing for them. And
Yeah.
I enjoy that depth that you get from that, even though it's, hard fought for, but when those moments are there, like, it's just so rewarding. So you just keep, that's kind of that, really. That's
And you know the
that's kind of the
sound,
story.
right? As a writer, you know exactly how, if you write something, how it will sound, because you
Yeah,
know the sound of the band and everything. I mean, that helps so much, I think, as a
yeah,
composer as well.
yeah, and it's just, you can have fun with that, can't you? Like, if when you know people really well, you sort of partly anticipate how they're going to respond to things, but you also enjoy throwing in curveballs and
Yeah,
like, just sort of like what's surprising becomes different over time and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, and I think it just that having the opportunity to like work with the same kind of people over time, I think it gives you a depth, even if, obviously you can't do that with everyone, but I think like now when I work with anyone, I'm better at
absolutely.
finding a space of people because I've done it so deeply with a group, a certain group of people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I find it amazing when I played for some time with Paul McCandless of Oregon,
Oh,
and
wow. Yeah.
they've been playing together. We did a couple of tours in like mid 2010 to 15 or something, and
Yeah.
him and Ralph Downer, who sadly passed away, like they
Yeah.
played together for almost 50 years or 40
Yeah.
years, and
Right.
and I was like, well, how do you compose and stuff? And Paul was like, yeah, you know exactly how he will sound, and the trick is still to surprise each other on a
Yeah.
gig, after playing
Totally.
600 gigs.
Totally.
And they always
Yeah.
had these moments of free impros. Like
Hmm.
every gig, he said, like since they started, they played a free improv, like 20 minutes, just
Yeah.
to get it, because if you play a tune, it's always, I mean, it's kind of the framework is there, but the language is there. But on a free improv, it's like, okay, ooh, what
Yeah.
are you doing there? So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a nice
Completely.
way to explore these long-standing relationships musically,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I find it
Absolutely.
amazing.
Like, I've always it's sort of, yeah, the sort of like free or open improvisation, it kind of occurs in different ways in different
Yeah,
parts of different scenes, doesn't it? But I've always really enjoyed it. I feel like it's always been there in my music in some way.
absolutely, yeah.
It's just so important to the space. But yeah, that's amazing. Like, every gig, 20 minutes, like, what an amazing thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, I wanted to ask you also about emulsion, if that's still going on. I know you've been I mean, proactivity is so important, I think, for players, especially in the UK scene. I mean, I think each one of you is like, you have to push it, you have to do it. And that was also part like of you basically starting to organize things, right? Because
Yeah.
something was missing. And
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah. Very well put. Yeah, I mean, I haven't like done one since before COVID. That doesn't mean I won't ever again. But I mean, it's kind of like a few different things, really. Like, so before COVID, if actually not before, like during COVID, I finished doing a PhD, which was like one of the most stressful things I think I've ever done.
yeah, I can
And like
imagine. Yeah,
the reason I did it was actually because someone suggested it to me. Like, it wasn't something that I'd really had on a wish list of activities to do or anything. And I didn't do a master's either, so and having done like a performance degree, it really wasn't really wasn't on my radar. But I kind of went to Banff to do the summer school.
oh wow, beautiful.
Like, I was kind of like I was like early 30s when I went. I was one of the older ones, really, which I kind of wasn't. I hadn't kind of. Well, I didn't know what was going to happen, really, to be honest. But I just wanted to go and do something completely different and meet some people I didn't know, and just be around like all those incredible musicians that they they have there, and I still kind of,
Such a
reflect
huge institution, yeah, for
such an
every generation of
incredible,
players, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
experience. But because kind of doing a PhD is kind of slightly more of a thing in the States than it is here. I think I'm right in saying, because if you want an academic position, like teaching wise, you have to have one. So I think there's just more of a it's just more of a thing.
Yeah.
That's not the case in the UK. So I when I came back, it's not that I suddenly wanted to do a PhD, but like I'd obviously like been around like some really interesting musicians who were doing them, or were thinking about doing them, and yeah, and then the head of composition at Birmingham, not the jazz department, but the head of composition kind of got in touch with me and was just like, oh, there's like some funding for jazz and blah blah blah. Like, do you fancy coming and doing some of your emulsiony stuff, like as a PhD? And I was just like, do you know what? Like this, like why not? Like if I can make it happen, like because you have access to, if you can get a funded place, that is, your work's being supported. I mean, obviously you've got to do the thesis, which is
Yeah.
a lot of work, but like if it's a practical PhD, it means that you've got like actually a lot of financial support, and a lot of space for like really exploring something, and trying to get funded. When you put on these little things, certainly in the UK, I mean, I did okay at getting some money, but it wasn't very much each time. Like it's like a real it was like year to year, it was like a real challenge to sort of make it work. So each year I had to do it in slightly different ways. So I was kind of quite attracted to the idea of kind of having like a set way that I could make it happen, for a little bit. And actually, I think it made I was pleasantly surprised by what I kind of discovered through doing it, actually. So we had obviously had like public performances as part of what I was working on as well, but some of the sort of more experimental things that we did in the workshops, like probably were arguably like more experimental and more interesting than actually kind of more standard avant-garde performance spaces. Like when if you're being really like really thinking about what you're pushing at. And so I think because I'd done that, I felt like I'd almost like raised the bar too much for like, I was like, well, like how would I enable that space to be that experimental again, like, and I sort of struggled to come up with an answer. And then, of course, like with the pandemic and funding, it's even harder than it ever was before. And I just haven't had the energy, to be frank,
Oh yeah, sure.
to kind of take it on again. But that doesn't mean that I wouldn't, at some point, if the right kind of opportunity or space came along. But I think, just sort of having the luxury of like kind of really pushing at some things in a non-performance space, and then sort of letting them spill over into performance spaces, which it was just such a cool experience. And I just think that's probably why I haven't done it again, is because it would have to build on that, and that kind of thing takes even more preparation and even more time,
Absolutely.
money and risk and blah 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 blah. So yeah. For now, not so much, but maybe I'm never say never. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Trish, what's still on the schedule for this year? I mean, quite some gigs I saw. I mean, like duo and quartet, and then some other
bits and bobs. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go, and I'm going to Basel to kind of do like a little thing for Fabian Wellman, who I don't know, but he just kind of got in touch and puts on this thing. So I'm looking forward to that. And there's a drummer, Marika Vining, who
Oh yeah, sure, I know her.
who I sort of know through Dave Douglas.
Yeah.
I don't know her very well, but I'm looking forward to getting to
She's a
play
great drummer. Yeah,
with her. Yeah, she's fantastic. Yeah, so that'll be a little fun thing, like in the middle of like some band gigs. Yeah, duo gigs with Ross Stanley, and I'm doing really looking forward to in July. I kind of have a currently a one-off concert at, I've been sort of doing some things at Wigmore Hall each year, like the last few years, and for this one, Norma Winston is kind of going to be like my main
Beautiful.
guest, and Mike Walker is playing guitar too, and
Oh
Ross
man.
on piano. So I'm really looking forward to. I'm hopefully going to go and visit her quite soon to sort of figure out what we're going to do. But it's all going to be centered around. So it's over 10 years ago now. I did a radio thing with her and Mike Walker, and
Wow.
Mike writes like really
Oh, I love Mike.
amazing
Oh,
poetry as well.
yeah, I know. I've done this interview with
Yeah.
Mike, and we talked like for 3 hours almost. Like,
Yeah. I can
he's
imagine. Yeah.
such a nice guy.
Yeah. So I set one of his poems to some music. Well, I set a few of them actually, but there was one in particular that really like clicked. And so we're going to perform that again, just like the four of us. And I'll probably like write something new, but like we're also just going to kind of dip into like Norma loves Wayne's music as
Yeah.
well, and like there's plenty of other like cross-pollination things to get stuck into, like maybe some of the azimuth. We'll see. We'll see where we go. Like we haven't decided exactly what the program's going to be yet, but I'm really, really excited about figuring that out.
Beautiful.
So
Yeah, you should record the live gig at least, just to have the
yeah, well, I think
document.
I really want to record it
Amazing.
in some way. Yeah, so yeah, for sure.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Oh,
Well, if you ever make it to the continent, like in my region here near Slovenia, just drop me a line,
yeah, I will. Yeah,
We'll
thanks
get to
so
hang
much
or
for
play or
the.
something. So it'll be
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, I would love that. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for the great conversation.
Yeah, and thanks for finding the time. And I'll send you a link when this is out, and we can then share it
Yeah,
and everything. Cool.
brilliant. All
Great.
right,
Trish,
thanks so much,
stay
Samo.
strong.
Take care.
Bye. You too. Ciao.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.
Dr. Jazz. Dr. Jazz.